This movie is about Shihua, a girl from the wild countryside who knows 18 forms of martial arts, and Jifei, the CEO of a company. What interesting things will happen between these two? Let's watch the movie together. Shihua was sent down the mountain by her master to deliver a letter and also to explore the outside world. After arriving in the city, Shihua went to the company of her master's friend. Because she didn't have a way to contact him, the security guard stopped her. As a result, she could only sneak in. Coincidentally, today was also the day the company was preparing to announce their new representative. While pretending to be an employee, Shihua learned that the company representative was planning to ruin the launch. Before the event, the representative, following the script, pretended to faint. Shihua found out what was going on and went to press his acupoint, causing him to wake up in pain. But no matter what she did, he pretended to be unconscious. With no other choice, the organizers decided to let Shihua go on stage. She was very nervous, but luckily she calmed down and remembered the martial arts she had learned to perform on stage. After she finished, Shihua received applause from everyone below. This helped her find Hong Sen, the person her master asked her to deliver the letter to. Hong Sen is also Jifei's grandfather. After Hong Sen learned that Shihua was his benefactor's disciple, he was eager to help her. However, Shihua modestly wanted to find a normal job to get used to life in the city. The next day, Shihua was hired as an assistant director's intern. She went to work with enthusiasm, but life wasn't a dream. No one gave her any work all day. After everyone left work, Shihua went to the director's office to ask what an intern should do. Seeing this, Jifei patiently gave her instructions, reminding Shihua to be more proactive in finding work tomorrow. Shihua was about to leave when she noticed Jifei put his hand up to rub his temples. So Shihua offered to take his pulse. She learned from the secretary that he often stayed up late and ate irregularly. That night, Shihua went back and prepared medicine for Jifei. The next day, Shihua started her productive day, making medicine, carrying water, washing clothes and receiving guests. But everything seemed to be messed up. Jifei couldn't stand it anymore, so he took her home to complain to his grandfather. He listed all his complaints about her, but in his grandfather's eyes, what was happening before him was exactly the same as what Jifei's father had done to Jifei's mother before, so he was very happy. After a burst of anger, Jifei was still certain that his grandfather would send Shihua away, but to his surprise, his grandfather arranged for Shihua to take care of Jifei's health. The CEO, of course, wouldn't accept Shihua's supervision. He insisted that he was very healthy and didn't need any care. Shihua was furious. To prove that Jifei's body wasn't as healthy as he thought, she pushed the CEO onto the chair and pressed his acupoint on his foot, causing him to scream in pain. After a while of torture, Jifei still didn't agree to accept it. Shihua could only call the chairman to force Jifei to drink the medicine she had made. Jifei was helpless, so he went to his best friend Nangang Zhao's place to complain, saying he would figure out a way to make Shihua leave. Jifei called Shihua to talk privately. He took a step back and said her medicine was very effective. He said he would transfer her to Renji University, a famous traditional Chinese medicine school, where she would learn more and help more people. However, Shihua was not manipulated by his sweet talk. She realized that she had a task to complete, so she decided to stay. She also realized his plan was to get rid of her. Jifei saw that Shihua was determined to stay, so he decided to change tactics. He presented her with the bill for the shirt she ruined while washing, demanding 8,000 yuan. He gave her two options, either stay and pay for the shirt or sign a form to attend Renji University, and the shirt would be forgiven. Shihua held the pen, but refused to go. Jifei forced her to sign, and she accidentally dislocated his arm, causing him to faint. After a while, Jifei woke up in the hospital, with his friend Nangang Zhao by his side. As soon as he woke up, he wanted to leave quickly, not wanting to see Shihua. Nang Zhao even frankly told him that Shihua had dragged him by the chair in front of everyone in the company, making a fool out of him. At that moment, Shihua appeared. She was happy to see Jifei wake up and immediately apologized, but Jifei didn't want to forgive her. So Shihua wanted him to hit her so she would feel less guilty. The CEO, of course, couldn't hit her. He grabbed his coat and was about to leave, but Shihua stopped him. They struggled, and Jifei's hand hit the wall. Shihua ran over and explained that it was a natural reflex to avoid, and even wanted to demonstrate by punching him in the face. He couldn't dodge, so he got punched in the face. This was too much. The CEO angrily left. The next morning, he went to the company and ran into Shihua again. For some reason, Jifei accepted Shihua's apology and obediently took the medicine and breakfast she prepared. On the other side, the female colleagues were speculating about the unusual behavior of their boss. After Shihua appeared, the CEO wasn't suddenly enlightened and accepting of Shihua. He was actually taking a step back, outwardly calm so she would lower her guard, but still not giving up on his dream of getting rid of Shihua. To get rid of Shihua, the CEO made her attend a leadership meeting. He imagined how she would be embarrassed in front of everyone in the company. But reality didn't go as he expected. Shihua used her eloquence and wit to stand up and give a speech, receiving enthusiastic applause from the shareholders, and escaping a disaster. Later, at lunchtime, Shihua brought Jifei a very nutritious bowl of porridge. The CEO resisted, but Shihua used his grandfather to force him to eat, feeding the CEO spoonful by spoonful, under the astonished eyes of his colleagues. After finishing, the CEO even had to go for a walk in the sun with Shihua. After the walk, the CEO returned to his office, exhausted. Shihua, satisfied, wanted to do something else. At that moment, the CEO called her back and told her directly that she was the company's representative, but she had no professional knowledge. Despite this, Shihua didn't give up. She decided to start learning. She believed that if she tried hard, she would meet the company's requirements. Back at her desk, Jifei's secretary gave Shihua a stack of documents. She was surprised but quickly started reading each document. At quitting time, the CEO went over to Shihua, bluntly telling her that she couldn't do it and telling her to know when to quit. Those harsh words were actually encouraging words for Shihua, so she went over and hugged him, then happily went to photocopy the documents. Late at night, Shihua was still at the company reading documents. To keep her spirits sharp, she brewed ginseng to drink. At this time, Jifei was also working overtime, coming out of his office to find Shihua. But Shihua, because she had drunk too much ginseng and been too nourished, had a nosebleed. The CEO saw the blood and immediately had a flashback to his mother's childhood accident, causing him to faint. When he woke up, the CEO acted like a child who didn't know Shihua. He sat huddled under the table. Shihua was a bit surprised, but quickly regained her composure. She knew he had been working overtime and hadn't eaten anything, so he must be hungry. She went to make him something to eat. Shihua brought Jifei a bowl of noodles, and he quickly finished it. As she went to put the bowl away, he grabbed her hand. She knew he was afraid she would leave, so she reassured him that she would be right back. When she returned, Jifei had fallen asleep. She gently covered him with a blanket. Later, Jifei woke up and lay down at Shihua's feet, calling out for his mother, making Shihua think he was dreaming. The two slept like this until the next morning. Jifei woke up, surprised to find himself sleeping next to Shihua. He immediately got up. Shihua was also awakened. She asked him why he acted so strangely the night before, but he dodged the question, only warning her not to talk about it. Shihua worriedly moved closer and asked again. At that moment, Jifei's secretary, Shen Jun, discovered their unusual situation. The CEO nervously instructed his secretary to pretend he hadn't seen anything. That day, Jifei tried to avoid Shihua, even moving to Nang Zhao's office to work. But wherever he went, Shihua followed. Finally, Jifei hid in a closet, but Shihua still found him. Taking the opportunity, Shihua also went into the closet to question Jifei's condition. They pushed and shoved each other, and Shihua fell onto him. In the cramped space, their eyes met. Shihua realized it wasn't right and suggested going outside to talk. Before they could get out, the female colleagues surrounded Jifei's secretary, Shen Jun, and interrogated him. Under pressure, Shen Jun surrendered and revealed what he had seen that morning. Shihua wanted to come out and explain, but was stopped, accidentally making a noise. With no other choice, the two inside pretended to be ignorant and left. However, Shihua still wasn't giving up, following the CEO. At that moment, she received a call from the chairman inviting her to dinner. He also texted Jifei to come along. At the family dinner, there was Jifei's uncle and aunt with their son Jiang. During the meal, the grandfather introduced Shihua to everyone. The uncle and aunt also mentioned the incident with the representative the day before, saying they would help Jifei find out who was behind it, but secretly plotting in their hearts. After dinner, Jifei's younger brother Jiran went over to meet Shihua and asked her out for a walk around the city on the weekend. The next day, Jiran went to play tennis with his older brother. He talked about wanting to take Shihua out for a walk around the city on the weekend and said he liked people like Shihua. Jifei thought his younger brother was under the weather because he liked Shihua. That night, Jifei had a dream. In his younger brother Jiran's wedding, the bride was Shihua, and the three of them became one family. Shihua even forced the two of them to drink traditional Chinese medicine. He woke up with a start, thinking that he couldn't let the date between Shihua and Jiran go smoothly or his nightmare would come true. On the weekend, Jifei followed Jiran's date with Shihua, along with Shen Jun. No matter how secretly they followed, the two of them were discovered by Jiran, but he didn't expose them. Jiran and Shihua went out to play, watch a movie, and eat, having a lot of fun. At the end of the day, the two decided to play hide and seek in a secret room. Jifei and the secretary also joined in. While playing, the secretary Shen Jun was captured by people in the game. To release him, they needed a couple to take his place. Shihua and Jiran agreed to exchange, saying they were a couple. Jifei stood beside them and suddenly also spoke up, taking Shihua's hand and saying they were a couple. The two brothers kept arguing back and forth, and the person playing the devil asked them why they liked Shihua. Jiran didn't hesitate to say that he liked her liveliness and cuteness. He wanted to give her the best. Shihua wasn't impressed. She turned to look at the other person. Jifei said she was savage, rough, and unreasonable. But since she appeared, his life had become more colorful. He just wanted to be by her side every minute of every day. Jiran stood beside them, his eyes a bit disappointed, as he watched the two of them go through the ceremony. After it ended, Shihua went home first. Jiran then exposed his brother for following him earlier. The two brothers went to eat together, leaving Shen Jun behind with the game players. Jiran didn't give up. After returning home, he decided to pursue Shihua all the way. Shihua continued to take care of the CEO's health. They were doing handstands to exercise. At that time, Jifei's childhood sweetheart, Ji Qing, returned from abroad and went to his company. Before arriving, she had looked up information about Shihua. When Ji Qing landed at the airport, she went straight to Jifei's office, surprising him with her appearance. After greeting him, she wanted to invite everyone out for dinner, taking the opportunity to befriend Shihua. The CEO couldn't refuse, so he agreed. During the meal, Ji Qing kept showing how close she and Jifei were, even mentioning marriage. Of course, Jifei refused to marry her. Ji Qing suspected that he and Shihua liked each other. Shihua quickly explained that their relationship was purely work. There was no other meaning. Ji Qing suddenly wanted to compete with Shihua, saying that she had practiced Western boxing and wanted to fight Shihua. Even though Shihua didn't want to, she was still taken to the training ground. Shihua continued to persuade her, saying that unintentional punches could injure Ji Qing, but she didn't listen and charged forward. Shihua kept giving way to Ji Qing. When she blocked Ji Qing's legs, Shihua said that was enough and stopped. But when Shihua turned away, Ji Qing continued to charge forward and attack. As a result, she was countered by Shihua and broke her leg. This was the consequence for being arrogant. In the hospital, Shihua kept apologizing. Ji Qing sat on the bed and said, "Shihua, you don't need to apologize." She invited Shihua out. Shihua had to leave. Only Jifei remained in the hospital room. Ji Qing said she didn't like having another girl around Jifei. He hurriedly said that Shihua was a bad omen. He wanted to avoid her. Taking advantage of this, Ji Qing pressured Jifei to stay by her side until her leg healed. On the other hand, Shihua was miserable, sitting there worrying that she had caused a huge disaster. The CEO left the hospital room and told Shihua to go home first. Knowing that she couldn't help, she could only do as he said. The next day, Jifei had to attend to Miss Ji Qing. Shihua went to the company and learned that Ji Qing was a big figure in the company. The Zhu family had to give her some respect. Now she had injured her. Shihua felt very self-blaming and even considered quitting. Not only that, Ji Qing's secretary came to say some nasty things to Shihua, even getting physical. Shihua didn't want to cause trouble for Jifei, so she could only endure it, regardless of what she said or did. But the secretary kept insulting Shihua. At that moment, the CEO appeared and chased the secretary out. Shihua, helpless, shed tears of frustration. That night, Jifei knew Shihua hadn't gone home, so he went to her desk. He saw the crumpled papers on the desk and opened them up. It was a resignation letter. Shihua knew she had caused a lot of trouble for Jifei and wanted to quit. In her letter, she also worried about his health and gave him many instructions. As he was reading, he suddenly smelled a strange smell. It turned out that Shihua was making medicine for Ji Qing on the rooftop. When she saw the CEO, she immediately apologized to him and admitted to many of her shortcomings. She also had no reason to stay at the company anymore. Hearing Shihua, Jifei pulled out a file about an upcoming water source survey in a small village. He said that maybe with her skills, she could barely manage it. Shihua was happy to be able to help him. Jifei asked her to go on a business trip with him tomorrow. The next day, to deal with Ji Qing, Jifei arranged for his secretary group to take care of her. While he went on a business trip, Shihua went with him. Before they flew, she caused him countless troubles, embarrassing him several times. Luckily, they finally arrived and were greeted by the highest level delegation, with 2 people and a 4-wheeled vehicle that was very strange. Shihua was very excited. Upon arriving at Yundian village, they were greeted by the villagers with the most solemn welcome ceremony. Red beans were sprinkled to wish them good luck. The 2 happily accepted. They were each given a set of traditional clothes to change into. Jifei wasn't used to wearing clothes with many buttons, so he asked Shihua for help, but when she saw his chest muscles and abs, she suggested that he learn martial arts with her. Seeing her bad intentions, Jifei refused her help, and the 2 argued, leading to a misunderstanding among the villagers. After changing clothes, they went out to meet everyone. According to the village custom, when guests arrive, they have to perform a show to return the greeting. Shihua happily stepped out to perform her martial arts routine, even pulling Jifei up to perform with her. Somehow their faces kept getting closer, and the 2 awkwardly ended the performance to the applause of everyone. Then they went to eat. Jifei was picky and wouldn't eat. Shihua worriedly asked him what he wanted to eat so she could cook it, but he said he didn't need it and went to the forest alone. It was raining, and he was cold and hungry. He picked mushrooms and cooked them, but after eating, he couldn't stand and felt dizzy. He had hallucinations and started getting diarrhea. Only after drinking Shihua's medicine did he feel better. On the other side, in the city, Nangang Xiao went to a swimming pool. She found a coach, but it was Jifei's cousin, Jiang, but she didn't recognize him. She flirted with him, saying she wanted to learn swimming with him. Jiang was already fascinated by Nangang Xiao. She quickly changed into her swimsuit and learned to swim. Then the 2 went out to eat and play, then spent a sweet night together. The next morning, Jiang woke up, and Nangang Xiao had already changed clothes and was rushing to leave. Before leaving, she realized that the man she had been with the night before was her boss's cousin. Back to the main couple. In the evening, the villagers invited the 2 of them to drink. Jifei was not a good drinker and fell asleep after 1 bowl. Shihua had to stay by his side to take care of him. When he said he was cold, she went to check on him. At that moment, Jifei also opened his eyes. He thought Shihua was up to no good and immediately sat up. Hearing his hoarse voice, she forced him to get a back rub on his neck. The next morning, when he woke up, the villagers saw the red marks on his neck and misunderstood that he and Shihua had done something intimate. This misunderstanding is way too funny. According to the schedule, the 2 of them would go up the mountain with the village head and the villagers to inspect the water source. Because of his weak physics, Jifei wanted to quit and didn't want to go up for the inspection. Shihua scared him with earthworms to get him to continue. After inspecting the water source, Jifei seemed to have no intention of investing and bluntly refused. Shihua stood beside him, wanting to say something. Returning to the village, he saw that the children couldn't go to kindergarten. Jifei wondered why. Shihua answered that the kindergarten was quite far from there, and the children's parents had to work and didn't have time. Shihua understood that when Jifei's grandfather suggested this place for the survey, it wasn't just for economic benefits, but for a deeper meaning. That afternoon, Shihua still wanted to go up the mountain to see the tea plantations. Jifei went with her. They admired the scenery until nightfall. It was dark around them, and the 2 of them got lost. Jifei accidentally fell into a pit. After pulling his pants up to check, he saw blood on his leg and fainted. While fainting, images of his younger self crying, police cars and blood kept repeating in his dream. Shihua jumped into the pit and called Jifei. Jifei was terrified, but still trusted Shihua and did as she said. Shihua climbed up to find something to pull him up. Because of his injury, he had to struggle to climb up. After bringing him back, washing him, changing his clothes, and bandaging his wound, Jifei suddenly called Shihua sister. When they asked, they learned that the Jifei in front of them was 6-year-old Xiaofei. Xiaofei always felt insecure, and Shihua patiently comforted him, promising to stay by his side forever. The next day, Jifei woke up with a start to find Shihua sleeping next to him. Shihua woke up groggily, and Jifei immediately ordered her to forget everything that happened last night. The 2 had to return to the city today. The childish CEO even stole the kite of a kid, who often teased him before leaving. After returning, Shihua visited Jifei's grandfather and reported on Jifei's condition. Shihua felt that his physical weakness was due to mental pressure. Seeing this, to strengthen Jifei's healthcare, his grandfather decided to let Shihua live with him. Even if Jifei objected, he He couldn't resist his grandfather's words. The first morning, Shihua banged on the pot to wake the CEO. She dragged him out for a run in martial arts practice, not letting him come home until he was exhausted. After the exercise, he had to go take a bath. While bathing, he thought of a way to scare her away. After showering, he came out wearing only a towel around his waist and swaggered out. Seeing this, Shihua covered her eyes and told him to go put on clothes. It was too eye-catching to be like that, but Jifei, hearing the words, eye-catching, insisted she open her eyes and look. As they struggled, Shihua cried out in alarm. The scene shifts to the next day at work. Shihua opened her phone to look at photos she took in the village. She had taken pictures of the scenery, but many of them included Jifei. A coworker saw it and wanted to see them. Shihua wanted to send them privately, but she accidentally shared them with her boss. Jifei forced her to delete the photos, but she refused. He wanted to take her phone and delete them himself. They struggled and ended up getting close to each other. When Nang Gongxiao arrived, Shihua ran away in embarrassment. Nang Gongxiao came to announce that the CEO of Qingyan Waterworks, Li Hui, had agreed to cooperate with Fai Nian. Jifei was a little suspicious that the other side had agreed so easily. When they met to discuss, Jifei was in a meeting, so he let Zi Hui take over. Li Hui was actually a lecherous and despicable man. He even tried to grope Zi Hui, but Shihua saw it and stopped him. Then she went to tell Jifei that Li Hui was not a decent person, and they shouldn't cooperate. Jifei rejected her opinion. He only cared about the company's benefit. Other matters could be discussed later. Shihua angrily went into the fire escape, but she heard Li Hui calling his mistress. She decided to find evidence to make Jifei see clearly. Although he said he didn't believe it, he still sent his secretary to investigate Li Hui's secret. On the other side, after chasing after Li Hui for a while, Shihua finally captured the evidence. But she was spotted by Li Hui's bodyguard. Shihua tried to run away to avoid being caught. Even though she was quick and agile, how could she fight against so many people? Luckily, Jifei arrived in his car to pick her up. On the way home, Jifei scolded her, saying that what she did today could jeopardize the cooperation between the two sides. Shihua tried to explain that she was looking for evidence to show him that Li Hui wasn't someone they could cooperate with. Jifei told Shihua not to interfere in this matter, making her angry. The next day, Shihua was truly angry with Jifei. She didn't even bother to prepare his medicine. At the same time, she was invited out to eat by Ji Ran. During the meal, Shihua told Ji Ran about the things that Jifei had done to make her angry. Ji Ran comforted her, saying that his brother was always objective and rational in his work. If she could really find evidence about the flaws in Li Hui's company, only then would Jifei abandon this deal. Shihua said she would try her best to find it. To find evidence, Shihua went to Qingwan's company. She snuck inside. Jifei had arranged for something to be announced, and he was worried about Shihua because he couldn't find her at the company and couldn't contact her. As for Shihua, she walked around Li Hui's company and saw the polluted water source. It turned out that this was the reason why the company was closed during the day. Shihua quickly took pictures. At that moment, the security guard on patrol saw Shihua breaking in. The guard was the same bodyguard who had chased her before. Because he had let her slip away last time, he had been demoted to security guard. He rushed forward to grab her phone and then stepped on it. Seeing this, Shihua punched him and grabbed her phone to run. At the company, Jifei held a press conference to announce the next quarter's investment plan for Fai Nian. He decided to invest in Yundian Village, which surprised Li Hui, who was sitting beside him. Shihua also returned just in time for the press conference. Shihua happily went to see Jifei. She didn't expect him to change his mind and invest in Yundian. She praised him endlessly, making him happy inside, but he didn't show it. On the weekend, Jiran invited Shihua out to ride a roller coaster and took pictures as a souvenir. The two of them went from morning till night, making Jifei worry at home, waiting for Shihua to return. When Shihua entered the house, he pretended to be indifferent. Seeing that she brought back a pile of photos with his younger brother, he thought she had spoiled his brother. Unexpectedly, Shihua compared him to Jiran, saying that Jiran was better than him in everything. Jifei was jealous and said that she was his representative, yet she went out to play around. He gave her a pile of books to study and told her not to go out casually. If she wanted to go out, she could go with him. Shihua was touched. Before, he wanted to get rid of her, but now he had accepted her, which made her very happy. On the other side, Jiang still liked Nang Gongxiao after meeting her, but today his parents forced him to meet a girl he had never met with his grandfather, saying that this was his girlfriend to please his grandfather. But in the end, He confessed that the girl pretending to be his girlfriend was his parents' plan. He apologized to his grandfather and left. He went to the company to see Nang Gongjiao and once again expressed his feelings for her. Nang Zhao, being rational, made it clear that even if they could be together, they wouldn't be happy because she was Jifei's partner and an employee of Jifei company. She always competed with his family's company, so his parents wouldn't accept it. After making him understand, Nang Gongjiao asked him to go home. Jiang went home and met his mother. He told her that he liked Nang Gongxiao and wanted to marry her, but she fiercely objected. Jiang went out to drink with a friend and poured out his heart. He said that he was actually very grateful to Jifei, because having a brother like Jifei to run the company, he could pursue his dream of being a swimmer. His parents always compared him to Jifei and Jiran. Although they were more talented than him, he was always Jifei and Jiran's older brother. At that moment, a phone call came in. The next morning, the three brothers of the Zhu family were sleeping together on one bed. Jiang was a bit surprised. Jifei said that he was drunk yesterday and had brought him home. Jiran woke up and said he was hungry. Jiang got out of bed and made breakfast for his siblings. After breakfast, the three of them played together, a very harmonious scene. At the company, Jifei's secretary group heard that Ji Qing was coming, and they all hid. Seeing this, Shihua also avoided her. Ji Qing came to the company. As a major shareholder, she came to present Jifei with a new plan to produce a men's energy drink. Jifei thought the plan was very good and agreed to implement it. Ji Qing had found a representative for the product this time, Jia Yang, a swimmer who had won many championships, but he had disappeared recently. Jifei would be responsible for finding Jia Yang to partner with on this product. Jifei gave the task to Nang Gongjiao and introduced her to Jiang, because Jiang was also a swimmer. It would be easier for someone in the industry to find him. Nang Zhao was a little embarrassed because Jiang kept talking about their personal matters in front of Jifei, so she reminded him that he had a meeting tomorrow and asked him to go home early. The next day, Jiang woke up, calling Nang Gongxiao's name, but she wasn't there. He thought he was dreaming, but when he looked in the mirror, he found 2 red marks on his body. He went to meet his friend and asked Xiao Wang to help find Jia Yang, then left. Ji Qing came to the company, saying she wanted to work at Zhu's company to manage her project. Jifei didn't object and arranged an office for her in the company. With the help of Jiang, Jia Yang came to the company to sign a cooperation contract. The female colleagues were very excited when they heard the news. Only Shihua didn't know who Jia Yang was. While signing the contract, Shihua met Jia Yang. At this point, she knew of his high profile, so she admired him and was happy to be able to work with him. On the day of the advertisement shoot, Shihua was going to meet everyone when she slipped and fell into the swimming pool. Fortunately, Jifei reacted quickly and jumped in to save her. Later, Jiran came to ask Jifei about it. He had jumped in without hesitation, even though he didn't know how to swim. Jiran asked if he liked Shihua. Jifei paused for a moment and denied it. After returning home, Shihua cooked ginger soup for Jifei to thank him for saving her. Because Shihua didn't know how to swim, Jifei didn't want her to continue filming the ad with Jia Yang. Shihua tried to persuade him. Jiran, sitting on the side, also thought it would be better for her to practice swimming with Jia Yang first and then continue filming. On the other hand, Jia Yang was standing in front of the pool, a bit scared. Images of Shihua falling into the water and the photo of his dislocated shoulder kept flashing through his mind. Jiang suddenly appeared and offered to compete with his idol, but he was rejected. Then Jia Yang felt uncomfortable and wanted to leave early. The next day, Shihua asked Jia Yang to go jogging together, and Jifei also wanted to follow. After a while, Jifei quickly got tired and couldn't keep up with their stamina. Shihua noticed and stayed with him. On the other hand, Ji Qing was very angry to know that Jifei jumped in to save Shihua. She dragged Shihua into her office to scold her, but Shihua said she was going to learn to swim with Jia Yang. Ji Qing thought this would help the two of them develop their relationship, so she happily let Shihua take leave to learn to swim. Jifei didn't see Shihua at the company, so he went to ask the secretaries. He found out she was learning to swim with Jia Yang, so he immediately dropped his work and ran over. Seeing the two of them happily practicing, he became jealous and kept sending Shihua annoying messages. While secretly observing, Jiang saw Jifei and loudly called out to him. Shihua heard and was very surprised to see him there. He used the excuse that he suddenly wanted to learn to swim, so he came here. After changing into his swimsuit, he appeared casually and walked in front of Shihua, wanting to go to the gym with Jia Yang to exercise. When they went into the gym, The staff didn't let Jifei in because he wasn't wearing any clothes, so he had to go change. When he came back, he saw Shihua and Jiayang practicing very harmoniously. Once again, he became jealous. Jifei squeezed between the two of them and used the excuse of separating them. He and Shihua practiced together, but Jifei's physique was weak and couldn't last long. At that moment, Shen Jun called from the company saying there were important documents that needed to be signed urgently. Hearing this, he took Shihua back to the company to deal with it. The next day at work, in the empty office, Shen Jun said that he had given the female secretaries the day off yesterday, and Shihua had been taking pictures for the advertisement with Jia Yang. Jifei had to postpone his meeting and went to the photo studio. At the studio, Shihua and Jia Yang worked together, interacting very well and being very in sync. But in Jifei's eyes, they looked like they were lovingly embracing each other. Jia Yang looked at him with a challenging gaze. He went to look at their photos and was surprised to find that they looked quite good together. He was a bit angry and quickly left. After Shihua and Jia Yang finished taking photos, they made plans to eat together. Jifei was at home, waiting for Shihua to come back. Jiran came to his house, and knowing that he was constantly worrying, told him how well matched Jia Yang and Shihua were, and how happy she was by Jia Yang's side, making Jifei grip his hand tighter. After Shihua and Jia Yang finished eating, they walked to the pool. There, Jia Yang revealed the truth, that he could no longer swim. His shoulder was injured and could not recover to his former glory. Seeing his performance declining, he lost his confidence. Shihua comforted him. He hadn't given up. He was still persevering in physical training. Wasn't he waiting for the day he could return to the competition and regain his championship? On the other side, Jifei's mind was only on Shihua. Even though Jiran tried to talk to his brother, Jifei didn't pay attention, and Jiran left in disappointment. The next day, Shihua encouraged Jia Yang to continue swimming, but he still couldn't overcome his psychological fear. Jiang saw someone at the pool and went over. While Shihua and Jia Yang were talking, Jiang learned that Jia Yang could no longer swim. Jiang was very disappointed in his idol, so he avoided telling the truth. He went to the company to meet Jifei, but Nangong Xiao said Jifei wasn't in a good mood, so she made an appointment for another time. Nangong Xiao wanted to thank him for helping to find Jia Yang, so she invited Jiang to eat. He happily agreed. The two talked about many things they had experienced and comforted each other. The next day, Jifei couldn't find Shihua and got angry again, regretting agreeing to let Shihua film the ad with Jia Yang. Later, Jiang came to tell him that Jia Yang couldn't swim. The two of them went to the set together. During filming, unexpectedly, Jia Yang swam normally and performed the scene well. Jiang didn't understand what was going on. It turned out that after Jiang left that day, Shihua still tried to encourage Jia Yang, but he seemed to want to give up, so Shihua jumped into the water. Jia Yang instinctively jumped in to save her. In fact, she already knew that he just didn't want to swim, afraid to face his own downfall. After filming, Jia Yang confessed his feelings for Shihua. She felt it was too sudden and rejected him. Jia Yang thanked Shihua for helping him and left. Shihua told Jifei about this. She only managed to say that Jia Yang had confessed his feelings to her. He reacted fiercely and told her to reject him, ordering her to stay by his side forever and never leave him. Shihua was a bit confused. She chased after him and asked him what he meant by forever. Did he mean forever like she thought? Realizing she had let her words slip, she ran away. Jifei couldn't catch up, so he used a trick to get her to come back. At that moment, he confessed his feelings to her. They confirmed that they were the ones they cared about most. Shihua agreed to be Jifei's girlfriend. They were both very happy. On their first day as an official couple, they were both quite shy. They didn't have any experience, so the CEO went online to find out what to do when dating. When he saw that Google suggested writing poetry to express love, Jifei thought the idea was good and put aside his work to write poetry for Shihua. But when she finished reading it, she wanted to help him edit the poem. Back at the office, Jiqing asked Shihua to meet her on the rooftop, saying she wanted to be her best friend. Shihua didn't refuse. During lunch break, Jiqing took Shihua to buy clothes, even though Shihua kept saying she didn't need them. It took a lot of persuasion before Jiqing stopped buying. At quitting time, Jifei acted like he was angry with Shihua in front of everyone, not letting her leave work, but actually he was making an appointment to go home with her. In the park, the two walked back together. Jifei awkwardly wanted to hold Shihua's hand. Shihua understood, and they were about to hold hands when a little boy on a scooter came speeding towards them. Jifei pulled Shihua back to avoid being hit. They locked eyes. The two of them continued holding hands and walked on when Shenjun came jogging towards them. Shihua saw him from afar and took Jifei's hand as if she was helping him exercise his muscles. He was surprised, but he also noticed Shenjun's presence and cooperated. They quickly ran away using that as an excuse. When they got home, they decided to watch a movie. To create a romantic atmosphere, Jifei shyly wanted to hold her hand, put his arm around her, and be a support for Shihua, but he failed every time and withdrew. Shihua was a bit disappointed. The next day, at work, Shihua learned from Nangang Xiao to pretend to be vulnerable from time to time to win people over. When she was in front of Jifei, he was used to her being strong, so when she tried to be gentle and ladylike, he thought she was sick. When she got angry, Shihua just left. She didn't give up. Seeing a female colleague flirting with Shenjun, making him blush, Shihua decided to learn from her. She brought Jifei medicine. Shihua twisted and turned, wanting to feed him the medicine. Jifei refused, making Shihua angry, and she left again. To make herself look better in Jifei's eyes, Shihua went to the mall to buy makeup. However, she forgot that she was poor and had no money to buy it. So she bought things and made her own. Jifei was almost home from work when Shihua told him she was waiting for him at the plaza. He heard and went to her with a happy heart. He even hugged her from behind. But when Shihua turned around, Jifei flinched back in surprise. He didn't even recognize Shihua. She realized he was scared by the makeup she had spent time doing. The frustration she had been holding in all morning erupted, and she cried her eyes out. Shihua knew that boys only liked girls who were gentle, weak, and knew how to act cute, but she had practiced martial arts since she was a child. She didn't know how to be weak, so she wanted to put on makeup to look prettier and show her best side to him. The result was that she scared him. Jifei knew she was doing these things for him, but actually, she didn't need to follow others to become gentle, weak, and beautiful. What he liked about her was how she took care of everything to protect him, her original nature, not something else. Shihua understood and happily hugged him. She also realized what it felt like to love. Ji Qing invited everyone in Jifei's office to dinner, except him. Shihua also had to attend, so she couldn't go home with him. The next day, Ji Qing invited everyone but Shihua. Jifei thought Shihua was coming along, so he agreed to go, but when Shihua didn't come this time, he quickly went home. The next day, the same awkward situation repeated itself, but this time Shihua was there, and Jifei wasn't. When they got there, Ji Qing invited Jia Yang. Taking advantage of going to get water, Shenjun took a picture and informed Jifei. When he received the message, he immediately rushed over. Shihua was very happy to see Jifei show up, and Jifei squeezed himself between Jia Yang and Shihua as soon as he arrived. The CEO wouldn't let anyone have a chance to get close to his Shihua. After consecutive days of partying, everyone was too tired to go with Ji Qing anymore. When Jifei got off work and went home, he saw Shihua standing in the kitchen, cooking for him. He couldn't resist going behind her and hugging her. They sweetly exchanged kisses. Oh my god, this sense is so sweet. The next day, a classmate who was now the owner of a rival company came to challenge Jifei to a marathon competition. Jifei, having nothing to fear, immediately agreed. He announced it to everyone in the office, appointed Shihua as the team leader for the competition, and arranged for everyone to practice. On the day of the competition, everyone at 3 Company was united in their desire to win, so they all tried their best. In the end, with Shihua's encouragement, Jifei won. At that moment, he publicly announced that he and Shihua were dating. Besides Ji Qing's jealous look and Ji Ran's slightly disappointed expression, everyone else was surprised. They had long smelled the fishy relationship between the two of them. Later, everyone went out to celebrate. Ji Ran fell behind. Jifei went over to invite him to go, but he declined. Jifei remembered that his younger brother also liked Shihua, so he once again confirmed that Shihua was his, and he couldn't give her to him. Ji Ran said he was happy for the two of them and left, his face full of sadness. The scene shifts to Nangang Zhao, lying in the hospital. It turned out that she had fainted while competing, using too much energy. Jiang took her to the hospital. Seeing Jiang caring for her, she gave him a chance to be her boyfriend. They had celebrated a bit too much, and Jifei was drunk. Shihua had to help him home. Seeing that he couldn't change his clothes by himself, she had to help him. He tried to take advantage of the situation and eat his sister-in-law, but Shihua remained sober and ran away from him. The next day, the CEO and Shihua went to the chairman's house to tell him, but they stuttered and couldn't say anything. At that moment, Jiang came and brought Nang Chao to meet him. His grandfather was very happy. Shihua and Jifei were very surprised. In the end, they didn't tell the chairman about their relationship. Jiran suddenly invited Shihua to his house. Shihua turned on the TV and saw herself on it. Seeing this, Jiran awkwardly spilled water on the photo album on the table. Shihua opened it and saw pictures of her and him. Shihua felt uncomfortable and was about to pretend to have something to do and leave, but Jiran confessed his feelings for her. Shihua tried to stay and have dinner with Jiran. Only when she actually left did Jiran reveal a sly smile. When she returned home, Shihua was a little embarrassed. When she got home, Nang Zhao and Jiang had come to their house to go on a double date with Jifei and her. The four of them had fun, ate and drank happily, and listened to everyone mention how close the three brothers were. Before going to bed, Shihua wondered if she was the one who would ruin the relationship between Jiran and Jifei. The next day, she heard from Jifei that Jiran would come to dinner with him tonight, so the two of them cooked together to treat him. Shihua was a bit nervous. Jiran arrived and he brought a camera with him, hiding it secretly. During the meal, Jifei and Shihua were very affectionate in front of Jiran. After dinner, Jiran still looked a bit sad as he left, not yet accepting that his brother and Shihua were together. Shihua felt listless and lifeless at work for the next few days, thinking a lot about Jiran's situation. Jiran invited her to meet him again. On the other side, Shenjun, reminded by Jifei to keep an eye on Shihua and Jiran, followed Shihua. Shihua went out to meet Jiran. He looked sad, saying that his brothers all had their happiness, and he felt like he was the extra person. He deliberately showed Shihua the wounds on his hand. Shihua worriedly asked him what was wrong. Jiran said that he could only control his longing for her by hurting himself. He really didn't want to interfere in their relationship. He begged her not to tell Jifei. Shihua felt guilty hearing this. She advised Jiran to stop doing this. She would figure out a way that was good for him and good for everyone. Then Shihua left. Jiran had succeeded in half of his plan. He hoped Shihua wouldn't disappoint him. Shihua decided to leave Jifei. Before leaving, she put up many sticky notes around the house, reminding him to take care of himself. Every memory between the two of them came back to her. She couldn't bear to say goodbye to him. Jiran, through the camera, knew that his plan had succeeded. The wound on his arm was fake. It turned out that the person he was targeting wasn't Shihua, but his brother. Shihua went to the company and gave her colleagues some instructions on how to take care of their health, then quietly left. Shenjun and Nanggong Zhao felt something was wrong. They informed everyone to look for her. Luckily, she hadn't gone far. Jifei arrived just in time, and they realized that they couldn't be apart. Sitting down to talk, Shihua explained that because Jiran liked her, if she left, things would go back to the way they were before she arrived. Nanggong Zhao also told Jifei that Jiran had done everything he could to break them up. Before Shihua arrived, Jiran had tried to monitor him through his friends. But Jifei didn't believe that his younger brother would do such a thing. Nang Zhao thought of a way to prove what she said was true. Jiran was at home, smug in the thought that Shihua had really left, when he received a call from Jiang, saying that Jifei wanted to propose to Shihua. He rushed over immediately. When he arrived, Jiran criticized Shihua, saying that what he wanted was for her to disappear from his and Jifei's world, not to dream of becoming his brother's wife. At that moment, Jiran discovered that the person kneeling was Shenjun. Realizing that he had been tricked, he turned around and saw Jifei approaching from behind. Jiran couldn't believe that everyone had conspired to deceive him. Jifei didn't understand why his brother wanted Shihua to leave him. Jiran said that Shihua was not worthy of him. She was only after his brother's money and assets. Moreover, it was Shihua who had caused him to ignore his brother as much as he did before. Jiran kept talking nastier and nastier, insulting Shihua. Jifei couldn't take it anymore and wanted to hit him, but he stopped and hit himself in the face instead. Jifei had been trying to work hard to give Jiran a better life. Now, Jiran was acting like this, which made him truly disappointed. Jiran became even more disappointed when his two older brothers betrayed him. He took a knife and injured himself. Seeing the blood, Jifei fainted. After waking up, Jifei transformed into a little boy. Jiran didn't understand why his brother had become like this. Shihua explained to him that Jifei had witnessed everything during his parents' accident, which caused psychological trauma, so every time he saw blood, he would turn into this state. Jiran couldn't accept this and ran out, while Shihua continued to comfort Xiaofei. Jiran was alone in the dark room, remembering the past memories of the two brothers. Jiang came to find him and brought food. Then he advised him. The scene shifts to Zhifei and Shihua. After this incident, they learned the truth and continued to stay together, working together to get Jiran to accept their love. Jiran still refused to give up. He learned about the situation at the company and prepared a plan to replace his brother. Zhifei still didn't know about this. He went to meet his brother to talk. Jiran blamed him, saying that he always claimed to be his closest relative, but he never told him important things. In his eyes, he was still a child that Zhifei needed to protect. He had tried to learn a lot so he could go to the company to help him shoulder the burden, but Zhifei never trusted him. The conversation ended in tears from both brothers. Jiran was determined to carry out his plan. The next day, news of Zhifei's illness was published in the newspaper. Zhifei didn't need to guess. He knew Jiran wanted to ruin him. The shareholders and the chairman came to see him after they heard the news. The priority now was to stabilize people's minds. Zhifei was trying to explain that his illness didn't affect the company's development, but the shareholders didn't seem convinced. At this moment, Jiran appeared and wanted to prove that the illness reported in the news was real, making Zhifei faint in front of the shareholders again. He was helped back home to rest. In his dream, Xiaofei appeared and told him that in the past, because he was afraid of being abandoned and being alone, Xiaofei stayed by his side. But now he had Shihua to rely on. He was strong enough to move forward. The past was no longer a weakness, but an armor that made him tougher. This time when he woke up, Zhifei no longer turned into the little boy. He knew that Jiran had spread the video of him being sick, and the shareholders' trust was no longer firm. Jiran was alone in the CEO's office when the chairman and Jiang arrived. What made him furious was that his nephew had colluded with an outsider and stolen his brother's hard work. Jiran still hadn't woken up. He didn't understand why everyone was criticizing him. The chairman couldn't hold back and slapped him, leaving him with a sentence to think about before leaving. Zhifei pretended to be normal and sat down to eat and drink with everyone. He drank one glass after another, thinking about his mischievous little brother. Everyone saw his state and was very worried about him. After Zhifei went to sleep, Jiang and Shenjun thought of a way to help him. If he didn't transform into a child anymore, then all that was left was to make him not afraid of blood. Jiang and Shenjun tried everything from getting familiar with the color red to giving him pig blood to drink, but the results were zero. However, they didn't give up and decided to continue treating Zhifei the next day. The next day, Zhifei suddenly wanted to participate in Jiang's meaningless treatment. He also wanted to go up the mountain to visit Shihua's house. Shihua knew he wanted to escape, but he really didn't want to lose his brother, whom he had protected for so many years. He also accepted the fact that he was a patient. This incident was definitely a huge shock, but he had to cheer up and find the old him back. Shihua would be with him throughout the process. This made him turn around and reclaim what belonged to him. The situation wasn't good because Zhifei didn't have many shares. His hope was that Ji Qing could help him, but her condition was that they get married. Of course, Zhifei couldn't agree. There was still another way. He could rely on the shares owned by Jiang's parents. To get them to help, he could only threaten them, but the evidence of their shady transactions had been taken by Jiang. In the board meeting, Zhifei explained his condition and once again persuaded the shareholders. Jiran still didn't want to believe that Shihua was the one standing beside him, not him. He wanted to reveal the wound on his hand, but Zhifei stopped him and injured himself. Blood appeared, but he didn't faint. Shihua had cured his illness. Jiran didn't want to believe it was true, so he ran away. Zhifei successfully returned to his position, and with Shihua by his side, the two of them were happy with the congratulations of their colleagues. Just when it seemed like everything was over, and Shihua and Zhifei could be together peacefully, Shihua's master suddenly appeared. He brought challenges for Zhifei, such as racing a turtle, carrying his wife for a lap, and blindfolded wife finding. But life wasn't like the movies. Zhifei chose wrong. As soon as it was over, the master pulled Shihua away, but Shihua had chosen to stay with Zhifei. How could she leave so easily? The master couldn't force her and had to accept. On the other hand, Jiran still wasn't enlightened. Shihua's master accepted him as a disciple and took him up the mountain. In the end, Shihua and Zhifei registered their marriage. Jiang and Nangong Xiao were also happily together. Jiran learned medicine from his master on the mountain and cured the villagers. His relationship with his brother and Shihua gradually improved a lot. The movie, Perfect Mismatch, ends here. A sweet movie has come to a close. Please stay tuned for more great movies.